Hi friends, I'm Katie Brinkley and you're listening to Rocky Mountain Marketing. With nearly 2 decades helping business owners, consultants, and coaches with their digital marketing, I know that social media can be an incredible tool to grow your business when you know how to do it the right way. And that's what we're going to do today. I teach you how to navigate the world of entrepreneurship and digital marketing, and hopefully you'll grow your business with a few great tips you wouldn't have known otherwise, and maybe even discover a great local business you love. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. I'm really excited for today's podcast guest because we're going to talk about the importance of power partners. And this was something that I didn't even realize I was doing when I first started my business. But now that I have met our podcast guest, I strategically go out and try and find these power partners, see how the shirt I'm wearing today, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, it says collaboration over competition. It's so perfect that I wore this shirt for today's guest because it's right in line with what he practices, what he preaches. Today's guest is a very dear friend. We actually met at a conference and got to know each other better through another podcast, the NFT 365 podcast. Today's guest is very active in the Web3 space and NFTs, and we have a very common interest in, this whole new phase of the internet. But his day job right now, Jordache Johnson, is my guest today. And Jordache is a power partner expert. He's also a digital growth strategist and an international speaker. He helps impact-driven entrepreneurs and CEOs scale their businesses by increasing their visibility, impact, and revenue through meaningful connections, innovative technologies, and principle-based systems. He has a proven framework, which I've actually had the opportunity to sit on a masterclass, this framework. It's called the Friends Method. And this method combines Jordache's extensive experience as a growth strategist, business coach, and a mentor with his experience in building relationships and utilizing technology to drive growth. Jordache, thank you so much for joining me on Rocky Mountain Marketing today.
Katie, what is going on? I'm so excited to be here. So excited to serve you, your audience, and we're going to have an amazing conversation today.
Yeah. And, like I said, we met at a social media conference and then got to know each other and we were both speaking at Social Media Week Lima, and we just continued the conversation. We now have both helped Brian Fanzo with his NFT 365 podcast. Before I hit record here, we were talking about some NFT projects that we both were active in. But I mean, it's really cool to have this conversation with you about power partners because I've always known you in the Web3 space. But after sitting in on your masterclass that you gave to a mastermind that I'm a part of, man, I knew that I needed to bring you on the podcast to share some of your strategies and some of your tips with my listeners. And we won't hold it against you. You do live in Kansas City and are a huge Chiefs fan. But let's put all football alliances aside for today and, talk to us a little bit. So growth strategist, technology, growth strategist, business coach. How did you get involved in this coaching and mentoring space?
Great question. So I say my official entrepreneurial journey started 11 years ago. Prior to that, we always had, I feel like everybody like my age had side hustles all throughout high school, growing up, yada, yada, right? So we won't go that far back. But, I've always been, it really started when I was in college. I got very, very interested in business. I was an accounting major, finance major. That's really when I started reading, was in college, right? Like I started reading books that were not required for school. And so I'm reading every business book I can get my hands on and really start understanding things from a high level, like 30,000 foot view side of things, right? Because I knew at some point I wanted to own my own business. But at that point, I had this false mindset of I had to go down this like corporate path to get all this experience before I was, capable of starting my own business, right? We know in today's world that's so not true anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because, after I went to, I left corporate back in 2011, 2012 timeframe, went back, got my master's degree in technology commercialization. And from there, I met two of my co-founders. I was a co-founder of a SaaS startup then. So we had about a 3-year run running a SaaS company. That was a whole, the VC route. We thought we were trying to go build the next unicorn, the $1 billion company. And it's, I look back at that time, and it's funny to think about this as I look back at the lens that I have now when it comes to business. But, something I was very good at then was building partnerships. Like we had relationships with IBM, we had partnerships with Amazon, we had, every startup type of adventure, like we were just building good relationships and partnerships that was really propelling us at that. And I didn't, I was naive. That was not like a thought of the time. I say all that because from there, I really started my agency. After I left the startup, I started my agency at that point in time. And, when I say agency, it was really a freelancer. I was a glorified freelancer at that point in time. And I told myself, because one thing that we weren't good at the startup was I had two of my co-founders were one was a coder and one was an engineer, right? And so like we were not good at marketing. I look back and I'm like, oh, we were actually horrible at marketing. I didn't have like everything that I knew of marketing at that point in time was stuff I just learned on the fly, right? So there was no formal back, there was nothing, no experience to back that up. And so I remember this specifically. I drove to a Starbucks. I was in Austin, Texas at the time. Drove to Starbucks, met one of my co-founders, and at that point in time, I was like, "Hey, man, like, I'm done. Like, I got to move on, right? Like, this isn't working anymore." And he understood. He's like, "I'm surprised you lasted this long." Because things were just not working out, and we weren't taking paychecks, we weren't making much money. We were just like grinding. And I remember when I left that Starbucks. I remember getting in my car, driving back on Palmer Road, back to my house. And I remember telling myself, never, ever, ever will I ever be in a position where there was a product fit and we were solving a legitimate problem, but we just didn't know how to market. So I committed to myself at that point in time, I'm going to learn how to market. I'm going to learn what the hell a marketer does and how to do this right and actually understand. Because like I said, all my experience was from academia at that point in time, right? What I learned in grad school and business school. There was no real world application. And so from that point in time, that's when I was like, well, crap, I need to start making some money. And so at that point, and this is 2013 timeframe. And so at that point in time, it was like, hey, let's learn how to build websites. So I learned WordPress and I'm learning this. And then from there, we're learning Facebook ads and we're learning Google. And so like over the years, I'll just say like up until probably 2017 timeframe, it was just, hey, what do you need help with? I'm going to go learn it and I'm going to go get you results. And it was just all about, once I understood, it didn't matter how long I knew something. It was matter, can I get the results? That's all that mattered. So from there, I was finding people to pay me to get results for them. And I'm learning, I always told myself they're paying me to learn skills. So like over that period, it was just learning skill sets. And I'm a firm believer that you can spend a few $1,000s or get paid in my sense to learn $1 million skills. That's if you can learn how to build skills that people that are solving big enough problems, people will pay you a lot of money to solve those problems for you. And so that's really what kind of expanded my knowledge of the online space, of the marketing space, of the digital space, was just figuring out what problems people had and learning how to solve them. And then from there, I brought a partner on in 2018 timeframe, and then we really started, or 17, and we really started scaling the agency. And that's when we really just focused on helping launch and scale launches for online entrepreneurs. So we were getting our hands on almost, I always say like the full cycle of marketing, from pre-launch to during the launch to post-launch to upsells to funnels to downsells to email marketing to running ads, yada, yada, yada. We were kind of a one size fits all for a launch to help you scale your launches. And so that's what really catapulted me up into understanding how to grow businesses, because we were working with, high 6-figure, low 7 and multiple 7-figure businesses, getting behind the scenes of them, understanding how did things scale at that level. And then, I had my son. I didn't have my son. My wife had my son. I was a part of that, and I took a month off. And at that time, when I took that month off, I was like, we had the clients, we were running pretty smooth, but then there was just something there. Like as I was getting closer to the time for me to jump back into the game, I call it. There was just that friction, I would call it, meaning I just wasn't excited to get back into that grind. Because if you got to think about this, when our clients were dealing with launches. So us as the agency, we were in perpetual launch mode every single month or client or whatever, everything. And if you've ever launched, it can be stressful, especially if you're dealing with, 6-figure ad spends and making sure leads are coming in. And then Facebook iOS 14 was around that time. And so all this stuff was happening. And it was finally like, yeah, this ain't for me no more. Right. But I say that. So I bought my partner out. We kept clients, but I say all that because around that time was really when I started to understand how powerful relationships were in business. Because when we grew our agency, I would say and I'm not even joking. When I say 98% of our clients was from, I can always pin it back to either an introduction somebody gave me or a relationship that I met. And we got very, very good at building the right relationships, turn them into partnership opportunities, turn them into clients, etc. And that's when I realized, whoa, there's actually a system here. And then that's kind of where we're at today. So, but yeah, so that I say that because my wife jokes around because my wife's been with the same company since we graduated college together.
My husband's the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like just doing this. And I'm like, the whole journey. But, that's what I prefer because I'm a lifelong learner. So I've learned so much. I've learned so many skills and I've met such amazing people along this journey. And if my journey was this straight, that's why I left corporate because it just wasn't engaging for me enough for, who I am and what I'm about. So,
well, and I want to talk too about what you said with power partners, because I think that a lot of times it does get misconstrued with networking. And when I was in corporate, and I say this on the podcast often, when I was in corporate, I was like, why would somebody want to go talk about work after work? That sounds horrible. Right. But this is one of your core principles is to ensure that entrepreneurs actually stop networking. You're saying stop the networking. And this is one of the things where I've found amazing relationship. I mean, that's why I have my office here. I'm at a co-working space. And the reason I have it is so that I can network. And they have networking events every Wednesday. But you're saying entrepreneurs need to stop networking and start building relationships. Because those are, and it's so true, those are two very different things.
Very different things. It's funny when you hear the word networking, it's such a supercharged word because people usually cringe or they're like, oh, I hate networking. I had one guy tell me, I hate networking. I'm like, great, me too. So tell me about your business, right? So it's just like because I say that jokingly because networking, most people's perception of the word networking is though it's either the speed dating kind of networking or
they're going to get sold to by somebody they don't know.
Or somebody's about to pitch them, or they've gone to these things where it's that one person who's been handing out cards to everybody in the room. It's like an insurance person. There's always had this negative connotation of networking. And I don't like networking either. I think I don't like forced. I don't like to be forced into having a conversation with somebody or forced into trying to even appease somebody that either I'm not interested in or they're not interested in me, right? So when I say stop networking, I mean when we actually focus on the human, right? We're not, because networking, usually there's a goal there, right? There's like, I'm here to network to generate more business or to get more visibility or whatever that intention is behind the networking. Not saying it's bad, but in today's world, it's people see through that so quickly and clearly. And so when we take a step back and say, okay, yes, if I want to get more visibility or I want more referrals or whatever that end goal is whatever you want in your business and you're like, oh, I got a network to do that. Yes, that's one way to think about this. Or you can say, okay, well, what's actually going to allow me to get what I want? Which is a human, right? I need a human to actually make a referral for me or to give me an introduction or to become a client of mine. So if I can just focus on understanding that person on a human level, not worry about what my end goal is, but just understand, hey, I just want to learn more about you. I just want to start building a relationship with you. And a relationship, I mean, is based on curiosity. All that means is if I just want to learn more about you to the point of uncovering a problem that either I can help you solve or I know somebody can help you solve, there's more than likely that you're going to want to eventually help me when I'm in need at some point in time. It's that reciprocity factor, right? And so and Katie, this is how we met, right? Like Brian Fanzo, like our mutual friend, right? Like I didn't go into getting to know Brian so I could, or we're both, guests or co-hosts on his podcast. That was not my goal to be able to go be a co-host with Brian on his podcast. Shoot, I didn't even know he had a podcast. First time I met him was at Social Media Marketing World, right? That was the first time in March where we connected, right? But it was like, I'm like, man, I was in this guy's session. I was like, man, this dude, I like what this dude has to say. Like he's interesting. Like I just want to hang out with him. Like I just want to be friends with this guy. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I want somebody like that in my world, right? Not saying he ever has to interact with me. Not saying that we're going to be best friends, but it's like, hey, I just want to follow him on social media. I want to hear what he has to say. I like what he has to say because I'm curious about this Web3 stuff, the NFT stuff that he was talking about. And so through curiosity, you start finding opportunities to start building or adding value to those people's lives, which then strengthens a relationship. So that's where a lot of people make the mistake of, I'm just trying to network to get something versus if I just focus on building one relationship every single day or strengthening a relationship every single day, which can take less than 60 seconds if you actually break it down. And if you do that consistently, you're going to have a whole bunch of opportunities or people out there that are looking to help you out as well, and without you even having to ask for anything, right? Like, and I put a post on my Facebook the other day. One of my most favorite activities every week is referring amazing humans I know in my world, right? It's like, Katie, I know you're amazing at social media. If I have somebody come across that I need help with social media, I'm like, look, I got the perfect person you need to talk to. You need to go talk to Katie. What does that do? That solves their problem. That gives you value, right? If you guys go do amazing things, I'm just helping basically create that genesis of y'all's relationship. You guys are not going to forget who introduced you guys if you guys do amazing things. But I'm not in it for me. That's just a byproduct, right? But if you can do this, the key word's consistently, and this is where a lot of people make that mistake of, I'm just networking or I'm just trying to do something when I need something. And there's that old saying, don't pull from the well until you're ready, until you dig it, right? Or I don't remember what the saying is, but it's basically start serving people and start basically interacting with people and start building a relationship with people before you ever want to ask for anything or whether you need anything. And that's where, like I said, people don't look at building relationships. And we'll talk about power partnerships here in a few minutes, but just building relationships is a foundational growth principle in your business. Because if you think about this, and I say this in one of my keynotes, this isn't anything brand new that I'm talking about here. Right? Like zero. Like this isn't nothing. Like this isn't like Jordache had this download from the universe. And it's like, oh my gosh, here's this brand new spanking a crazy new business growth strategy. No, like Dale Carnegie, 1934. Like this is the same principles that we're talking about. And that's why we know it's a principle, because the same things that they were talking about almost a century ago is still applicable today. We have the internet. We have social media, all these tech tools and strategies that we have now, but this specific principle still works in business. We know that it doesn't, that's why it's a principle, not a strategy or a tactic. And when you can focus on building your business on principles, you've just simplified your business and the growth of your business tenfold, because now it doesn't matter what all the stuff around you are out there in the tech world or the internet world or the social world, all the things that are changing all the time. You just need to learn how to adapt a principle to those times versus finding a whole new strategy or a whole new tactic or a whole new way to get visibility in your business versus relying on principles that don't change. And that's a very empowering place to be as an entrepreneur when you have more control of the growth of your business.
Well, and you mentioned why, power partners, and they're so important for your business. I mean, and it, especially in the online space, with so much happening through a computer screen now and through DMs, you can have amazing power partners that you've never met in real life. And let's just talk about why power partners are so important and how they're different than just networking.
Great question. So you hit the nail on the head there, is because in this online space that we're in right now, and the way that we do business in 2023 that we're in right now, it's so funny to realize, like, you sometimes you have to take a step back. Like we both go to a lot of conferences, right? We speak on stages, we attend a lot of conferences. When I like go to a conference and I meet somebody, we call it IRL, in real life, for the first time, and I'm like, yo, I feel like I've known you for a year, because I have known you for a year, right? Because like we've been on Zoom, we've already established rapport and relationship, but this is just the first time physically that we're meeting. And it's always interesting to think like that's the world we live in versus 10 years ago this wouldn't happen. Shoot, 4 years ago, before the pandemic, Zoom was not a verb. Right now, Zoom's a verb. Like now, people are actually comfortable with being on video and stuff like that. So now, talking about power partners, the way that I define a power partner is it is an individual in the world that is out there to help you, whether get more visibility, get you a referral, or help you sell your offer in some form or fashion, right? So that, and a lot of people make the mistake of, when I talk about power partnerships, they go straight to a JV, right? And a joint venture, right? Or a rev share, a revenue share kind of partnership, right? That's one type of power partnership that you can establish, right? There's other ones, right? There's, being a guest on somebody's show or having them be a guest on your show. That is a collaboration. So like everybody, like one of the things I always say is everybody that you talk to, I don't care if they're in the Starbucks line. I don't care if they're sitting next to you at a conference. I don't care if they're on the airplane next to you. They are typically going to fall into one of three buckets, have the potential to. They can be a connector for you. They can connect you with somebody. They can be a collaborator with you, which is kind of what I was just talking about. Or they can be a client of yours or a customer of yours, right? So like when you think of those three C's, you're like, wow, just because somebody may not be my ideal client or my ideal customer, but they have 100 people that they're connected to, that there's probably somebody in that group that they could either be a collaborator with you or a customer of yours. They're a connector. And that's why, like, when you can realize that everybody has the opportunity to interact with to be a connector, that could be a power partner, right? Because a power partner is somebody that can get you connected with somebody that you want to get in your business in some form or fashion. So when I look at power partnerships, we talk about, there's this concept of relationship currency. I won't go too in depth with this, but we talk about the withdrawal, meaning the ask. What am I going to get from a relationship, right? And that's where we kind of talk about what can a power partnership lead to? And it can lead to, we have basically 7 different types of them, but it's be your guest, be their guest, doing list swaps. There's like 7 different types of value that can be added to your business from a power partner. And so when you focus on or cultivate enough of these relationships, they're going to amplify your ability to be visible in front of your dream customer. And I would actually argue more effective than a paid ad or a social post, because there's going to be built-in trust, rapport, know, and likeness from the person that's connecting you with their audience. So that's where power partners are so important, is because they short circuit the ability for you to build know, like, and trust with audience or potential dream clients or customers. And the power on top of that is they connect you with a whole bunch of other people. And so it's not like it's a one and done thing. It's not like I'd run a Facebook ad, then once that ad, runs its course, I got to come up with a new ad. No, once you establish a relationship, if you do it right, that's going to be a relationship for a long time. That's going to continue to pay dividends to both parties involved in that relationship. So you're really compounding your ability. The more relationships you build and the more authentic ones that are actually deeper, not transactional based, but actually you care about the human in that relationship, that's what's going to allow you to establish a lot of growth opportunity in your business. And I'll give you a perfect example. This was back in this was right before the world shut down. That year before 2019, I established a good relationship with a woman that ran an amazing program. And during that time, I was just serving her group. Like, I was part of the group. I wasn't part of the team. I was just an audience member, but I was like, there's amazing community members in here. I love what you're doing. Like, I'm just here to serve. If there's anything that I can offer this group of value, let's do it. So I'm just helping the Facebook group, helping in the Slack group, etc., answering questions, whatever, not expecting anything, just serving. We grew up, we established a solid relationship, right? Because that was a need I saw she needed in her group. Was like, there was a lot of questions. There were a lot of people relying on her to answer. I'm like, no, like, there's a lot of smart people in here. Let's start serving each other in this space, right? But from that, like, we built a relationship, we had good things, but at some point in time, out the blue, she calls me one day. She's like, hey, Jordache. She's like, I got to go speak at Traffic and Conversions, which, if you know, is a pretty big conference in our space. She's like, I was like, oh, congratulations. So happy for you. Excited. She's like, well, here's the problem. She's like, I'm actually double booked now. She's like, I was supposed to go speak at this thing called All Things Facebook and Instagram. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, about chatbots. And this we were talking about. This is one of the things we were doing in the agency at the time. And she's like, would you be interested in taking my spot? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, where is it? She's like, it's in Athens, Greece. And I'm like, well, gosh dang it. Of course I'm excited to go to Athens, Greece, right? Like, it's like, yo, like, let me go to Athens, Greece. Let's go, right? Like, and of course, I'm there to go serve, right? So it's like, but what the funny thing about that is that opportunity would have never existed if we didn't already have a relationship. Right. If we didn't already have that know, like, and trust factor, and then because you realize when she recommends me to go speak on a stage, her reputation's on the line. Mm-hmm. Right. Her reputation's on the line. That means I got to go perform and I got to go execute, because if not, it's going to look bad on her. So I'm not looking at pressure from me, but I'm like, okay, great. She would not have recommended me if she didn't trust me at that level. And that trust was established from us having a human connection, not worrying about how we're actually going to do business. But here's the crazy thing. So I go to this event and I'm getting ready to go to this event. And I'm looking at the other speakers and I'm like, oh, hell, Jordache, like, what did you get yourself into? Like, I'm talking like the VP of McDonald's UK. I'm talking like a VP of the CMO of L'Oreal. And I'm like, here's Jordache Johnson, little agency owner here in Houston, Texas, coming over to Athens to speak. But here's the great thing is, I was like, I handled my business. I served on the stage. I gave all the value. I led a workshop while I was there. I got amazing feedback, all that good stuff. I got some of my biggest clients from that stage. And I look back now and I say, so you sit here and you start tracing this back. I wouldn't have got those clients if I wasn't on that stage. I wouldn't got on that stage if I didn't have a relationship with the person who gave me the introduction. And so that's when I started realizing, it's like, okay, if I just focus on things that I can control, which is serving people and building relationships with people, a whole bunch of opportunities are going to open up that I don't even know exist yet. Mm-hmm. I didn't know this opportunity of speaking existed. So when I stopped worrying about what is that partnership going to look like, what is that power partnership going to look like, and I'm like, I don't care about that. That will figure itself out. I'm just going to focus on knowing this person as a human, figuring out how I can serve them, help them with their needs, and just be a good human. When I can focus on that, all the other stuff's going to take care of itself. And so when I realized I could do this over and over and over again, I was like, why do I got to go post on Facebook again? No, I'm just joking. But I say that because that's the power of this, is like, now you're building your network. Now, I'm not saying networking, but you're building your network of people. And what's cool about that is I call it that snowball effect, because the more people that I build a relationship with, then with the new people that I'm trying to build a relationship with, that I'm like, oh, what are you struggling with? Well, I got a whole bunch of people now that I can connect them with that already trust me and I trust them. That I'm like, oh, you need somebody. And this is what I call my friends. Well, I had somebody shoot me a text today. It's like, hey, Jordache, do you know anybody that runs Facebook ads in a local business? I'm like, give me 1 second. Looked at my list of friends in my friends vault. And I'm like, yeah, here's 3 people that I would highly recommend you talk to. Right? That's being a connector. Right. And so, like, people come to me now to get connected with people because they know that I have a good network of people. You can do the exact same thing. There's no certificate. There's no freaking marshal of the internet that says, oh, you got to do all this before you can start building relationships. No, like, you can start doing this today and just be a good human and don't expect anything in return. And that's why I have to do a lot of coaching on this, because, like, oh my gosh, they never respond to me. Well, so don't worry about that. Like, only worry about the things you got to control. How many messages have you not responded to? You look at my text messages. I got 79 unread text messages right now. I just looked and I'm like, sorry, like, I'll get to you when I get a chance. So I don't take things personal. It's just, when you can worry about what you have control over and just serve, amazing things will happen. And that's just one story. I can tell you so many other stories about growth opportunities that have happened just because I learned how to build these authentic relationships with people, not expecting anything in return.
Well, it's a give first mentality. It's a collaboration mentality. And it's a mentality of we all grow when we all grow together. Yes. I absolutely love that, Jordache. And it's something that I've really tried to pay more, not more attention to, but prioritize more in my week of building out these relationships, not for anything in return, but just to have the opportunity to say like, hey, in a room full of people, I will say your name and I hope that you'll do the same for me. But how can we support each other? How can, I'm happy to do this for you. How can I help lift you up? So this was awesome, Jordache. I know that you have a couple different groups, like for group masterminds and stuff. If people want to connect with you or learn more about you or the Friends Method, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Great question. So there's two places that you can do this. You can go to jordache.live/Katie, Kaiti, or Katie, excuse me. I can't even spell. So you can go to there. You'll be able to get on my email list. There'll be a training there for you as well. You can learn more about the Friends Method and this methodology, because this, one of the things we didn't really talk about, but like there's a way you can systemize this, right? I'm a big systems person, because when you can systemize things, it can get it can be repeatable and you get consistent results. And so there's a way to systemize building authentic relationships. We're not just talking about automation and spamming and DMing and all the craziness that people are out there right now, but it's a way to systemize who should you be prioritizing building a relationship with? How do you do this? How do you go through? And that's the whole methodology there. So you can go there and do that. Or the other thing is my DMs are open. Now, don't DM me, tell me to go join one of your groups or go do all this craziness that people out there in these streets in the DMs. But if you have a question, find me on Instagram, at Jordache Johnson, or find me on Facebook. Shoot me a DM, ask your question. I will respond and I will answer your questions. I'm totally open book to that. So either one is great. But like I said, I just recommend you get on my email list. We put some good stuff out there as well. And that's where you're going to continue to do something. But one thing, Katie, I just want to mention real quick before we pop off here, something you just said briefly was super important. I just want to make sure your audience captures that was, you prioritized your time, right? You're blocking time on your calendar for this, because when you prioritize, because it's not going to happen naturally. We're all business owners. There's 17,000 other things that we should be doing, or somebody's telling us that we should be doing. But when you just block off 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, or whatever that frequency is, I always equivalent to working out, right? If you never worked out before, if you've never done this before, don't go do 2 45-minute workouts in a day. Don't do that. That's not going to last, right? But if you're saying, hey, I'm just going to walk down the block and back today, that's all I'm going to do. Great. Do that for 7 days. And then next week, walk around the block, right? So start small. And so when you say once a week, block it off in your calendar, say, hey, I'm going to intentionally find somebody that I should start building a relationship with. I should start engaging with their content. I should start adding value to their conversation. And that's as simple as they can begin. And that's how a lot of my relationships start, is just, we all have access to social media. Start them there. And it's so easy to stand out from the people that are trying to get something from them, right? We're not trying to get anything from them. We are legitimately being curious about that person and figuring out what's that way I can serve them, right? What is, and this is what we talk about, superpowers and all that other stuff. But that is the easiest way to get started, is block off just a small chunk of time on your calendar and stick with it. And it's building that curiosity, discipline factor. And I promise you, if you do that enough, you're going to start seeing results in this, and you'll be like, dang, that dude Jordache actually knows what he's talking about. And yeah, sometimes I do. Don't tell my wife that.
You do. Yeah. You do know what you're talking about, Jordache. So you can feel free to clip that and then just carry it around on your phone. But Jordache, go to jordache.live/Katie to get all of the goodies from Jordache and learn more about the Friends Method, learn more about the Power Partners, because exactly like what Jordache said, I've blocked out time in my calendar to sit and engage with people that I want to have that relationship with. And it's already starting to show results for me. So Jordache, thank you again so much for being a guest on Rocky Mountain Marketing. I so appreciate you and all of your insights on Power Partners. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast, everyone. We'll see you all in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Make sure to subscribe so that you can continue navigating the world of entrepreneurship. And I'd love to hear from you. Please leave the show a review and connect with me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at @IamKatieBrinkley, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're ready to start making some sales on social media, be sure to grab my free guide to selling in the DMs without being spammy. You can get that at katiebrinkley.com. Let's keep taking your marketing to all new heights.